All right, my friends, this is Nick Newman with the Conscienticon, and in today's episode, I'm going to be covering the Corpus Hermeticum. Now, this is a summary from my perspective, so some of the things I may say may not flow with what you've been taught or what you've learned in other schools, but this is my personal understanding of it, and it is my goal to share the most important things about the Corpus Hermeticum with the mythos behind it to make it easier for people to understand. Because if you go through the Corpus Hermeticum and maybe you don't read very often, or you're not familiar with all these kind of occult ideas going on, it can be very hard to decipher. It can just leave you just as lost as you were when you started. So there's this idea that goes, the lips of wisdom are sealed except to the ears of understanding. And this means that you got to be in the right place in your life to even decipher what these texts are saying. They're hidden for a reason. It's to keep the cool kids in the club, you know what I mean? The occult people in the know. It's hidden on purpose, hidden in plain sight, and that anyone can access this information, but only so many people are going to take the time to actually distill it and share it. Now, that's been a big point of contention with me in occult works in general, is if this is knowledge that is so wonderful and can help answer the questions of life, death, suffering, evil, the soul, and the point of existence, wouldn't you share that information and make it as accessible as possible? But I think what they do is occultists anchor on this mystery aspect of the whole work, this idea that it's like, ooh, when you know this, you know secret stuff, which makes you cool and makes you feel good. And I think they hang on to that as a point of selling it. So like, you're like, ooh, when you discover the Corpus Hermeticum, it feels like you're discovering magic, like an old tome. And that is what is really spooky about the works, guys, is that this philosophy was made by unknown authors back during the same time the Bible was like written. All the texts back then were put together for the Bible. So we're talking, and it's before it was translated too. So its origins are in Hellenistic Egypt. So you have Hermes Trismegistus, which is a character in the story, talking to God, right? And Asclepius as well. So these guys are symbols, ideas, God being an idea, Hermes being an idea, and Asclepius being an idea. And they communicate with each other. And it is our job when we read it to decipher its meanings in the way that we perceive it through our own eyes. But what I'm trying to do is distill this information for everybody to make sense of what the Corpus Hermeticum is saying, what the origin or the Genesis story in it is about, so we can answer those questions. So this is unedited. Put me on the background. And if you like occult stuff like this, please subscribe to the channel, because that's what the point of the Conscienticon is to share hidden wisdom that'll make lives better and reduce cognitive dissonance. So we have dialogues between the legendary character Hermes Trismegistus. Okay, Hermes Trismegistus is a character who is a god, essentially. He's Hermes, the god of knowledge, and Thoth, the god of knowledge from Egypt, right? So you have a Greek god and an Egyptian god that created one character, which is how you can see that the origin of this text comes from Hellenistic Egypt, which is the time when these cultures were merging. And so they just merged the gods. And so we have this fantastic philosophical text written with all these symbols talking to symbols. And that is what it's about. And these symbols translate to the deepest understandings of those people at that time. And what's amazing is it translates to our day-to-day life. When you understand what the Corpus Hermeticum is teaching, it makes life make sense. Okay, it takes away a lot of the I would say hate that people have over the natural world, about the evils that are inherent in the world that we see, and the anger that people have with the idea that there's some God out here that willed all of that. How could a God will such a world that's so violent and crooked and evil and twisted? How? And so this answers these things, okay, in a way that is supposed to, as funny as it is, when you understand this gets you to the understandings into understandings, meanings into meanings, to where you can actually grok what Eckhart Tolle is talking about, and these modern mystics like Sadhguru, talking about the now. So let me take you on a journey, my friends. And please look at the original works. They're free. You can find them on Google, the Corpus Hermeticum. And it might take you a while to try and grok what that text is saying. But I'm going to try to get you here faster, my friends. So we're going to start with the origin story. The origin story starts with the Pymander, or however you would like to pronounce it. It is a conversation between Hermes Trismegistus, the wizard, and God. And he's dreaming and he's talking to God, and God answers all his questions, right? Or the universe answers all these questions. God is a loaded word, okay? So we can exchange the word God for universe, existence, reality, the grand mind, the pattern in which all things exist, okay? So we can interchange these ideas. Leave your preconceived notions at the door. And do not be afraid, because you can pick them up and leave at any time you wish. Okay, that's an Alan Watts thing. It's like to understand this, kind of leave the things that you think you know at the door, and just kind of humor this story. Okay, humor it. And as I said, it is my perspective, so bear with me. Okay, so starts with a universal cosmic mind, okay? Something that never ended, never began. It's always been there. It just is. And that is the start that breaks our rational mind already. The idea that you have to get comfortable fathoming things that never began or never ended. Okay, the idea of things beginning and ending makes sense for humanity, because we begin and end, and all meaning is attached to other things. So all meaning you derive within the world around you is attached to the sense of mortality, the idea that something starts and then it ends. But the Hermeticum explains that there's no such thing. This is alchemy. Things transform. They never begin or end. They just transform. And we see this in all sorts of arguments about life. When it comes to abortion, that's a very good example. You don't know when the life began or ended, but in alchemy, if you were to look at it in that perspective, you would say that it just is part of the same thing that was always there. It's kind of funky. So let's not dive into that too much, but we start with a thing that is always existing, and it is all things, all right? And so to make sense of this, Nous, the divine mind talking to Hermes, explains himself as components. So he says, let's say I am all things. I am everything and everywhere. I am all time, and I've always been here and always will be, right? And my job is to explore myself. So to do this, there's an explorer, and then there's a thing that must be explored. And so now we begin with the concept of polarity, where we get gender and we get material reality and mind, or the logic of those realities, right? And so this logic of the realities, or the spirit of the realities, would be the father mind, or Nous, which is talking to Hermes. And then you have its polarity, which is feminine mother nature. It is matter. It is the realm itself. It is its swimming in itself. So you could think as the ocean waves, the pattern of the waves being the mind, and the ocean itself being nature, mother nature. And that everything is this. You and I, all of our thoughts, everything that's going on is this. Okay, so it starts like that. And we've got this thing. And what Father Mind does is he explores parts of himself. And you can think of this in the same way as, like, let's imagine you exist and I exist as egos exploring the world, right? I'm Nick, right? But I don't really know what's going on in my stomach, right? If I cut my stomach open right now and peeled the skin back and actually looked inside myself, I would be amazed. Even though it's still me, right? I'd be exploring, it'd be still me, and there'd be suffering involved in this process of me discovering myself, you see, or you discovering parts of yourself. In the same way, all realities are doing this, and this mind is the consistent now. So as time passes, it's every single moment that passes is this mind, and the moments it's passing through, the realms it passes through, is nature. So he's explaining it in this way. And so what we have is, we've got Father Mind, and we've got Mother Nature, which is the realm. That's a very good way to think about it, is that nature itself is chaotic, it's wild, it's unpredictable. And we know this to be a truth of our reality. We know that on a fundamental level, there are things that are completely unexplainable. We have particles of our reality that run on probabilities, and probability doesn't make any sense in terms of deterministic logic, which is what the Father Mind is. It's the all-knowing logic of things. And so we have that meeting something unpredictable. Chaos being the same thing it's deeply profound, but it is true. And it's a real woo-woo way of summarizing the problems that we're having currently with quantum mechanics and teleportation and all of this stuff. Okay, it is, in a sense, the way that we're making these physical processes happen. So we've got that, and we've got what's interesting is mind is always trying to tame nature. Okay, so it'd be like me cutting myself open. I'm trying to figure out what's going on, so maybe I can modify myself. We do that when we try to heal our bodies. And the alchemical texts talk about this. These early alchemists, including Isaac Newton, believing that the human body is a perfect example of the harmony of the universe, that human beings are examples of this dualistic nature of reality. And that when people say you look within yourself, that's what it means. Like all the answers, you are the living miracle. You are you exist as Mother Nature, being this thing made of all these material components that are partly chaotic, and this mind that's trying to sculpt it. And this mind goes so deep. And a perfect example of this mind being that deep is if we're talking about my stomach again, or a digestive system, it takes care of itself. I don't have to sit here and think about it digesting my food. It just does. It's got its own mind. And so Father Mind, or God, permeates all layers of reality, because they're really not separate. It just makes sense to create these concepts that you and I can understand. Mother Nature, Father God, really the same thing. A game that the universe is playing with itself. So we've got this idea that mind and nature, they love each other. So the origin story for this universe, this reality, is given to Hermes Trismegistus through Nous. And he explains that he started this universe with the word. He discovered this realm, this matter, and started it off trying to conquer it through the word. And the word is a fun way of it's an older way of talking about vibration, which is why vibration is a Hermetic principle, that everything moves, nothing rests, everything vibrates. We're talking about that the logic of the system is based on movement. So in the beginning was the word, and the word was God, and the universe was the word. That's what that means. And we take it back to the origin of this universe, or this realm, being the Big Bang, or whatever started all that cosmic background radiation. There's more things like that's more reasons why this philosophy is so profound. It just fits so well with what we are learning with physics. There's no conflicts going on. And so we have this mind that started it all. And the idea was that mind discovered nature, this part of itself, and was like in love with it, in love with this realm. Now, the mind is love. Father mind is love. So it loves all components of itself, but it tries to experience itself. And that is the beginning of the mind permeating this realm. And what happens is it sets order to the chaotic nature of this realm. And it begins by structuring pieces of its own order and pulling itself together. So we have an explosion, which is the word created all things, and then we have the mind pulling itself together. That is the deterministic anti-entropy of the cosmos. That's why, in this sense, it's explaining why there are stars and solar systems and galaxies and things like this. They're pockets of consciousness, awareness, the rules being placed on the chaos of the bed of this reality. And that it explains in a poetic way. The Corpus explains in a Hermetic way in the Pymander section that the father mind and mother nature loved each other, so they bound. So mother nature wanted to conform to the thoughts of the father mind, and the father mind wanted to bend nature in the way of its own ideals, its own thoughts, its own experiments with itself and meaning. And because of this, we have what is the origin of suffering. The father mind said that it would endure any experience in order to shape nature. And so what that means is that as we exist, we suffer, and things that are sentient suffer, right? And they suffer because they're trying to maintain some sort of form, some rational form amongst the chaos and entropy of the realm, this universe, okay? And that this creates suffering and is the point of the game. And it is manifest in every behavior that you and I exhibit, or any animal or plant exhibits, or any inanimate objects, such as matter just creating gravitational pulls towards itself. It is manifest in this way. So we move on to say that all things were created with this mind sculpting pieces of this polar part of itself, which is physical matter. And it goes on to say that God is good. And so now we have the idea of good and evil, right? God is good. So imagine an infinite mind, right? Trying to experience itself. The best way it would do that is create perspectives of points of reality. So it means that I am a perspective point of reality. I'm giving this summary of the Corpus Hermeticum from my experience. It means it's completely unique. And you are experiencing what I'm saying uniquely as well. And you have your own ideas and thoughts unique. And this is you and I and all things in the universe that experience are part of this mind that has fractured itself to experience and then return back to a single whole, or what it was always, a unity. So Hermes is talking to Nous, and Nous is explaining that he is good. Truly good, that all things are truly, truly good. There isn't anything that isn't good. There's things that are just ignorant and they suffer, right? And so let's imagine as a thought experiment that we severed the corpus callosum. That's kind of funny. Corpus Hermeticum, corpus callosum. It's a part of the brain that has your two hemispheres merged together. Now, there's been studies that show that if you sever the corpus callosum, you end up with a person with two personalities in the same body, inhabiting the same body. And so now you have two perspectives, because these fibers in the center of our brain share information from one hemisphere to the other, creating a sense of unity, a one personality. And imagine doing that, but fracturing your mind in a way as many ways as you could possibly fracture it, and then taking the fractures and creating whole new beings out of the fractures. That is what's going on. That is that everything that is conscious is a piece of nous, the father mind. It permeates everything, and it is good. It's and so now we go on, right, to find the idea of let's say everything he does to himself. That is why there's no such thing as evil to God, because he is the same player. So if I'm the same player and I do something to myself, it's not technically evil. I'm doing it to myself. So that part of me pays the price. So if I hurt myself, I'm not really ever getting away with hurting myself. I'm always, that other part of me is taking the pain. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's all being a shared experience. So there's no such thing as evil to the father mind. So when we die, we're not punished for anything, because we emerge and we're like, whoa, you know, that time I stole from that guy on the street or whatever, stole his stuff. I stole from myself. So damn. And I stole from him because I really needed it. And so you're forgiven, right? Because it's the same player interacting with itself. So throughout all religious texts, you get this idea of forgiveness, that God is righteous and loving and forgiving and just, because it's always the same player, right? And that all of us are fractures of this mind. We're all fractures of moments. We are fractures of eternal now that Eckhart Tolle is talking about, right? So the problem, we go on to evil, right? Because we're trying to answer evil now. And how this text goes about that is explaining that all actions are done to yourself, inevitably. And that there's ignorance, and that is the ignorance. There's no such thing as evil. It's ignorant. It's ignorant to steal from somebody because you don't really know, you don't really grok that you're stealing from another part of you, another being. And the part of the game is all this separation. And so we have one question, which is really funny. If you talk to people about whether atheists, if they believe in God or not, they will say something along the lines of, why do I believe in a God that creates kids with cancer? I mean, and one of the worst things I can imagine are there's a condition where there are babies born with their skins inside out, right? So the question becomes, why would God allow something like that to happen? And it's answered this way. It's answered that the baby that is born that way is God experiencing it. And it's awful and it's painful for God. Right? However, trying to control this reality, this realm of itself, requires that transactions like that happen, that because we are dealing with the chaotic nature of the divine. The chaotic nature right now, we all live and we all die and we all suffer, right? But right now there could be something going on with me right now. I could have cancer cells forming in my body. I probably do somewhere in my body. And this is part of the chaos of the system. It is not the will of God that this stuff happens. It is the will of God that we master these things, that we learn why these things happen. And when you look at what's going on with science, that is what we are doing. There is somebody out there, there's a doctor out there that can answer exactly right now why you have children that are born with their skins inside out. They know the machinations, and now they're pushing for the next step, which is to control the machinations. This is nous trying to control its own suffering. So take that. So that's the answer to the people that are like, why would a God do that? Well, he didn't want that. None of us want that, but it is a price that we pay to play in this realm that must be conquered and played in. And you see this game going on everywhere. You see this game, when you learn more about game theory and how that kind of works, you see that everything that is going on is some sort of a game. It's a game to get resources. It's a game to master something, to master yourself. Every time you learn, you're trying to create meaning so you can use the meaning and transmute your reality to whatever dreams or thoughts that you are having. And you see this even in something as simple as a video game. You see this. You see, if you ever sat down and played a video game and thought, what's the point of this? Isn't this just like a job? Like you play Minecraft and you build a house in Minecraft. Well, you're kind of doing a job. You're doing work. Why is that fun? It's fun because there's resistance. There's chaos in that game. There's variables you can't quite predict. There's creepers and zombies that are trying to eat you or whatever and blow up your stuff. And you're trying to tame that. You're trying to build structure in that chaotic realm. But the chaos is reduced in such a way in games as to make it fun, to make you feel like you are mastering it. But that same principle, the same thing that makes everything you do, competition against other people, solving puzzles and challenges, it's just a distilled version of what our purpose is as sentient creatures endowed with mind. So as I was saying, Isaac Newton, the greatest physicist, in my opinion, the greatest physicist of all time, who came up with all these beautiful concepts that we use today. Newtonian physics is used today to travel through space. And this man believed in Hermetic philosophy and texts, and this is an example of how if you look within yourself, you look at what you are, this huge amalgam of cells interacting with each other, creating this symphony that is you and I. When you look at that, that explains just a tiny version of what's happening to all of reality, all of the cosmos. Order trying to make sense of the chaos that we're swimming in, this realm. We are trying to master this realm. So we move on to the point of existence, which that is the point of existence. And I've talked about this before, and I love this example. Many of you, I'm sure you've watched the cartoon Rick and Morty. There's an episode in Rick and Morty where Rick makes the pass the butter bot, and the pass the butter bot is like, what's my purpose? And he says, dude, you pass butter. And the butter bot's like, oh my God, because he's built to do so much more. Now, why does that bother us? That we know we have this capacity to do so much more, but we just don't know what to do. There's so much chaos going on. Why does that bother us? Well, it bothers us because that is the point of every existence. And we're not just conquering material reality. We're conquering experience itself. People are living lives or trying to live lives that they deem is perfect, getting and manifesting all the things that they want: money, love, peace, safety, things like this. They're harmony. They're trying to create. They're trying to experience, and that's part of the mastery of the realm. So nothing anyone ever does is wrong. It's all for the pursuit of mastering the realm or mastering experience. So even somebody who is like crazy, like Ted Bundy, bashed in a bunch of girls in their sleep, for example, even Ted Bundy isn't worthy of divine punishment, right? Because Ted Bundy is a manifestation of the father mind that was born in a mess of a body, born with such chaos that manifested the behavior in which he had to kill a bunch of women. And of course, we, collective society, don't believe that behavior is helping us master the realm in any way. And so we send those people to jail, or we put them to death because they create suffering. They create unnecessary suffering for other minds in the realm, other pieces of noose within the realm. And so in the end, everything is forgiven. Yet we still have the responsibility to try to create or to keep order, which makes justice a thing. And there's a quote within the Hermeticum that says that the spirit, or nous, or God, is good, is not just good, is goodness. So it's not just good, not the idea of good, it is doing good. It isn't just the idea of justice, it is just. And so that's it's just absolutely amazing. And so we go to life and death and transmutation. We're talking about all we are different collectives of divine intelligence and matter. It's also the same thing, just different scales of vibration. Life and death are an illusion. What is not an illusion is forgetting. Okay, so you can think of it that way. When you die, it is a forgetting, and then a forgetting of this game in a remembering of the big game. So you have people that have that die and come back and say that they have experienced things. And this philosophy alludes to that, and it answers that, like, why did I die? And I felt like totally relieved, and I felt love and acceptance. Well, as we said before, the father mind is love, is acceptance. And another thing is, anything that anybody really wants is always trying to be answered. Anything that is desire is the desire of the father mind in conjunction with the chaos of nature. So we all have unique desires and unique perspectives, but all are pushing to be preserved. So if you listen to mystics, yogic mystics, talk about how you have a collective of minds, a consensus of reality. One person wants this to happen, but maybe that doesn't go their way because there's a whole bunch of other agents within reality trying to get their way too. I might be trying to build a house on the beach, but other agents of reality like to have the tide come in. Okay, the tide has to come in. That will is greater than my desire for the house on the beach. So I have to build it on a structure to compensate for the fact that the tide is there. And so everything that people are trying to do, all these agents are trying to do to grapple and manipulate and master reality, all happening at the same time, creates more chaos, more unpredictableness going on. And, so it goes further than that. So there's no such thing as life or death. There are just transmutations of meanings and symbols. And if anything was immortal, the texts also talk about humanity being immortal, both mortal and immortal. Our spirit being immortal in the spirit of nous, in the spirit of reason and mind and logic, and mortal in that the nature, the things that we are made of can't sit still. They constantly move and vibrate and change, which means that we inevitably die. And nous is explaining to Hermes in the text that death is a gift. And I like to reconcile that. I like to think about what it would be like to be immortal, but maybe let's say you're immortal, you never die for whatever reason, and you're in Antarctica and you fall in a crevasse and you can't get out. Death would be the sweetest relief for you, because otherwise, if you never died, you would sit in that crevasse for however much time it took and endure that. And so the idea is that as our body transmutes and changes, nous dreams in and out of it. It sleeps and it changes its perspective to relieve itself of the pain of the realm. Amazing, amazing to think about. So we're talking about life and death being one thing, that all that is happening is a changing of conscious awareness constantly. A really good example of that is like this video has been going for 34 minutes now. You listening to this 34 minutes ago, he or she, they're dead, basically. You and I are totally new right now in this moment. But yet, symbolically, we're the same. So we never died in that sense. Nick is still here. This just 34 minutes in the future, Nick talking to you. And you are still here, just 34 minutes in the future. But the material parts of us have changed. We've digested stuff. We have created proteins. Trillions upon trillions of proteins have been created by every cell in our body within just like the few minutes that have passed. Everything is changing. Of course, my math could be off on all this, right? But you know what? You grok what I'm saying here. So everything is forgiven. There's no such thing as evil. Evil only emerges as a consequence of the dynamics of the game. So the evil, if I was going to do evil, which would be any evil I would do would come from some imperfection within me, right? Some imbalance, something that's not allowing nous, the mind, the reason to act right. Because the most reasonable thing you can understand is that another sentient thing experiences the same way you do. That's the most rational, reasonable thing that anyone can ever know, is that when you are dealing with, say you're dealing with a fish, you went fishing and you have to kill the fish and eat the fish. There's a humane way to do it. And there's an inhumane way to do it. And we know that because the fish experiences, and we don't know quite what that experience is like perfectly, but we get a rough sense that this thing feels pain and it thinks maybe not nearly the level of thinking that we have, but it suffers. So there's this idea, and this is a story from Sadhguru. It talks about how you can have, you can do things that cause pain to other things. Like you got to eat to live, right? But there's a compassionate way to do it and there's an incompassionate way to do it. If you're a farmer and you raise chickens, the compassionate way to do it is to let them graze in an open field. And when it is time to slaughter them, you do it as fast as possible, all right? Without any stress to the organism, as little stress as humanly possible or chickenly possible in this sense. But that's kind of the deal, because you understand that nous, part of nous, father mind, is in the chicken too. You, the same that it experiences now as you, is also in that chicken. No matter what you do to it will be forgiven. But if you know with reason and logic like this, and then you know the right move always is to be loving and compassionate, because love is what you and I really are. So this is Nick Newman with the Conscienticon, and that is my best distillation at the Corpus Hermeticum and what it is meaning and what it is saying. And if we were wanting to talk, we go a little bit deeper here if anybody's still listening, right? Go a little bit deeper here about the magic part of it. To me, knowing all that is magic enough, right? But the magic part of it is to know that with reason, logic and reason, which is a gift from nous, right? Because we are nous, we are our own gifts. We can sculpt reality to our will. And we do that. We don't do that through magic. We don't summon lightning bolts within our minds. We don't do this. We use physics and science to manifest the things that we want in reality, because you are taking ideas born inside of our mind, learning the rules, which are more thoughts, more meaning behind these things. All math is rules and meaning that you impose on reality to get it to behave the way that you wish. So when you want something in your life, you think about it. And when you think about it, you create a vibration that manifests through physical reality, changes what's going on. For example, if I want, let's say I really want apples, right? I start thinking about apples a lot. I think about apples all the time. I want apples. For some reason, I'm hungry for these apples, right? And I can grow an orchard, right? I think about growing an orchard, getting some seeds and putting them in the ground and growing an orchard. This is an example of a thought thoughts about apples and me wanting them, changing reality, changing it to the point where I go and grow a few apple trees. As goofy as and simple as that seems, that's what we are doing all the time. You're thinking about things and you hold those thoughts in your mind, and then you begin to play the game of existence, which is the game. You're trying to make your thoughts manifest in reality. And that's the thing about magic. This is where people fall off the cliff. They think that they can just will things so hard that just they manifest perfectly however they want. But as I said before, just like building a house on the beach, I got to make sure that I understand that the tide is coming in, that the sand shifts. I got to make sure that if I'm building a house on a beach, I pour the right amount of concrete there, because so many other variables of reality are constantly coming into play with their own will, other versions of me. Right? Even the atoms and the wind and all of these things, these manifestations of Nous and Mother Nature, have their own will, in that everything is a battle. In the beginning, when life was created, the fastest way Nous could permeate the reality would be through evolution. It's creating pieces of itself and then competing with itself by eating itself and changing itself to not be eaten. And so maybe it can compensate for other points of its will that are coming in the future. So all of our evolutionary history, all the awful things our ancestors have done to other creatures just for us to get here, we're not done doing awful things to try and sculpt ourselves into the future, because all of this primal war of evolution has allowed us to get brains as large as we have right now. And now we're trying to conquer other things that are trying to eat us. For example, the sun exploding, or asteroids coming at Earth, or pandemics that will wipe out whole populations, or wars with other countries. We are trying to constantly, this war is a way of Nous shaping itself into a form that can manifest and control more of reality. And the best way to do that is to consistently present itself with problems based on its own volition, its own agency. So, this is Nick Newman with the Conscienticon. I think we've gone deep enough with the Corpus Hermeticum, and I hope that this has enlightened a lot of people as to what's going on. Please check out the works, and remember that anything that you do is forgiven. Anything that you've done in the past that's horrible, the regret that you hold is you knowing that you're different, and that when you die, you will be forgiven, and that if you follow reason, then reason is going to be your closest way to get back to Nous, or to what you really are. It's going to be the fastest way to discover your true self again. So whatever it is that you desire in life, you desire to manifest, you should try and manifest with full exuberance, and to not be ashamed of the things that you want to manifest. And that the only caveat, if you wish to not create evil in the world, the caveat is to understand that other things suffer, and that because these other things suffer, there are ways in which you should go about interacting with them. And these ways that you should go about interacting with them are the same ways that you should go about interacting with yourself. All right. This is Nick Newman. If you've enjoyed this content, please comment, like, and subscribe. If you disagree with what I said, or would like to take things further, hit us in the comments below, and let's get some topics started there, and some engagement started there with the community. And I just thank you all for helping support the Conscienticon, those that are with us now, that have been with me since the beginning of the channel. And I hope you all the very, very best. This is Nick Newman with the Conscienticon, where we share practical, spiritual, occult wisdom.